My name's Marie Bloom, and I've always been the one who didn't need much. Not the loud one, not the favorite, just reliable. Growing up in a house like mine, you learn real quick where you fit in. My sister Natalie lit up rooms. I held the door open. She made mistakes that were brushed off with a laugh. I followed the rules so no one had to clean up after me. And somehow, that made me invisible. I wasn't the kind of daughter who got bragged about at book club or posted on Facebook with #proudmom. But if something needed to be done, I did it. Quietly. Efficiently. No reminders, no drama. The kind of person families depend on without ever really seeing. When Mom's retirement came around, of course it was me who booked the venue, paid the deposits, coordinated the florist, even picked out a jazz trio because she used to hum Sinatra in the kitchen when she thought no one was listening. I handled it all with the precision of someone who knew no one else would bother. And I didn't complain. I never do. Because somewhere along the way, I accepted that my place in this family came without applause. I was the glue, but not the photograph. Present, but easily cropped out. That kind of role gets heavy over time. You tell yourself it doesn't matter, that it's love in a different language. But deep down, some part of you still hopes someone might notice. Might say, thank you. Might pick you, just once. They never did. I'd been planning my mom's retirement party for over 2 months, quietly, carefully, the way I do everything in this family. No fanfare. No group texts. Just task lists, contracts, and calendar reminders. I booked the venue myself, a cozy event hall just outside Charlotte that she once pointed at and said, "That place looks nice." I remembered. I always remember. The deposit? $3,800. Paid from my own account. No one asked me to, of course, no one had to. That's my role. If something needs fixing, I fix it. If someone drops the ball, I catch it before it hits the ground. And if anything costs more than expected, I cover the gap and stay quiet about it. I picked a caterer she'd love, farm to table, all organic Southern comfort with a modern twist. Another $2,000, gone without a word. Booked a jazz trio too. Not because she asked, but because I thought maybe, just maybe, hearing live music while sipping wine might make her feel celebrated. I ordered linen invitations instead of Evite. Custom floral wall. A slideshow with old photos I'd spent hours digging out of damp boxes in their garage. Every detail mattered. I just wanted her to feel like someone had gone all in for her, for once. I didn't need a thank you. Not really. But I think deep down, I hoped she'd notice. That someone would say, "This must have taken a lot." That I'd matter enough for the effort to land. But in my family, quiet contributions fade into the background. And I've become an expert at fading. The message came in at 10:42 p.m., right when my night had settled into that quiet, ordinary rhythm I'd perfected over the years. I was curled into the corner of my couch in my Nashville apartment, socks on, chamomile tea cooling on the coffee table, laptop open to a neat row of confirmation emails. Venue booked. Caterer confirmed. Guest count finalized. Everything for my mom's retirement party was locked in. My phone buzzed once. I barely glanced at it, assuming it was spam or a work alert. Then I saw the name. Natalie. 6 words. No emoji. No explanation. "Don't come to the party." I frowned, reread it, then actually laughed under my breath. A short, reflexive sound, like my body was trying to protect me from understanding too fast. Natalie had always been dramatic. She liked control. She liked saying sharp things and watching people scramble to soften them. This felt like that. A test. A tantrum. Something she'd walk back in 5 minutes. I stared at the screen, waiting for the follow-up that would make it make sense. My thumb hovered over the keyboard, unsure whether to ask what she meant or ignore it completely. I chose neither. I just sat there, counting my breaths, telling myself I was misreading tone through text, telling myself adults don't get uninvited from their own mother's milestone like this. The room felt suddenly too quiet, like the sound had been turned down without my permission. I looked around my living room, the throw blanket I'd folded earlier, the soft lamplight, the calm I'd built piece by piece, and tried to anchor myself in something normal. This had to be a mistake. I locked my phone, set it face down on the table, and told myself not to overreact. I didn't know yet that this was the moment everything shifted. The second message came almost right away. She doesn't want you there. I stared at the screen, waiting for my phone to buzz again with context, a correction, a follow-up that would soften it. Nothing came. The words just sat there, plain and final, glowing against the dark of my living room. Outside, traffic hummed like any other Thursday night in Nashville, normal and indifferent. Inside, something shifted quietly, like a load-bearing wall cracking without making a sound. I didn't cry. That surprised me. I'd always assumed this kind of moment would be loud, tears, shaking hands, maybe a dramatic call demanding answers. Instead, my body went still. My chest felt heavy, like someone had laid a warm brick right over my heart. Not sharp pain. Dull, dull. Settling. I replayed the last few weeks in my head. The venue tours. The emails with the caterer. The hours spent scanning old photos at my kitchen table, brushing dust off memories no one else bothered to save. I tried to find the moment where I'd crossed some invisible line, where I'd said or done something that made my own mother decide a retirement party would be better without me in the room. My thumb hovered over the keyboard. I could ask why. I could call. I could explain myself the way I always did, calmly, carefully, trying not to sound like a problem. But I already knew how that conversation would go. Confusion. Deflection. Maybe a sigh about how sensitive I was being. So I didn't reply right away. I set the phone down and listened to the silence. It wasn't peaceful. It was weighted, deliberate. And for the first time, it felt honest. I stared at the screen, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. It was just a thumbs up emoji. Gray. Dot. Small. Quiet. But it might as well have been a knife. It was under Natalie's message, she doesn't want you there, and it was from my dad. I blinked, thinking maybe I'd misread. That my phone had glitched. That maybe he'd meant to hit something else. Anything else. But no. That lazy, casual thumbs up sat there like it was nothing. Like it didn't cost anything to click. But I knew better. That wasn't a mistake. That was approval. And suddenly, everything felt still. Not calm, still. Like the air right before a car crash. Like the moment your ears ring and your body knows something just shattered, even if your mind hasn't caught up. For as long as I could remember, my dad played the neutral card. I'm just trying to keep the peace, he'd say. As if silence was wisdom. As if not choosing a side meant he wasn't complicit. But that one tap, that one damn emoji, told me exactly where he stood. He hadn't just stayed quiet. He'd voted. I set my phone down like it had burned me. My chest felt tight, like all the air had been vacuumed out of the room. I wasn't crying. I wasn't yelling. I just sat there on the couch, stunned, my tea cold, the lights too dim, realizing the people I'd spent my life protecting had never once protected me. And the worst part? They didn't even try to pretend. I didn't argue. I didn't ask why. I didn't type out a long paragraph, defending myself the way I'd rehearsed in my head for years. I just sat there on my couch, phone face down, and let something inside me go cold. My mind shifted gears without asking permission. I opened my laptop and pulled up the spreadsheet I'd been keeping for weeks. Venue, $3,800, paid in full. Non-refundable. Catering, $2,000 deposit. Farm to table, my mom's favorite buzzword. Jazz trio, refundable if canceled before midnight. Invitations. Custom linen stock, already printed, already mailed. I stared at the numbers like they belonged to someone else. No panic. No tears. Just math. This was the moment I stopped feeling like a daughter and started feeling like an adult who needed to protect herself. I remembered how carefully I'd moved through this whole process, calling vendors during lunch breaks, negotiating prices like I was bargaining for someone else's happiness. How I told myself it was fine not to be thanked. Fine not to be noticed. That being useful was enough. Sitting there, calculating losses, I finally understood how wrong that had been. My chest felt tight, but my hands were steady. I canceled one contract, then another. Each confirmation email landed with a dull thud, like a door closing softly but permanently. When a vendor asked if everything was okay, I heard myself say, "Yes, plans changed." My voice sounded calm, almost professional. That calm scared me more than anger ever had, because this wasn't me lashing out. This was me surviving. I wasn't trying to hurt anyone. I was just refusing to keep paying for a place I'd already been asked to leave. And once that switch flipped, from emotion to logistics, from hope to self-preservation, I knew there was no going back to who I'd been before. I didn't argue. I didn't beg for a seat at a table I'd paid to build. Instead, I opened my laptop and started pulling the plug on everything, silently, efficiently, like I'd been trained to do. First went the venue. The manager sounded apologetic when he reminded me the deposit was non-refundable. "Understood," I said, voice calm, fingers steady. Next was the caterer, $2,000 down the drain. They'd already ordered the ingredients. I told them to keep them. Maybe someone else could use them. Then the band. Gone. The jazz trio I booked because my mom once said she missed the sound of real music. They offered to waive a cancellation fee. I declined. It wasn't about money anymore. I canceled the custom cake, the floral wall, the slideshow guy who had spent weeks digitizing our old family photos. "You sure?" he asked. "Yes," I replied without hesitation. He didn't push. I wasn't trembling. I wasn't crying. Just focused. Clear. Like I was finally stepping out of a fog that had been choking me for years. By the time I shut the laptop, the room felt oddly still. I looked around at the quiet glow of my living room, the untouched mug of chamomile tea, the space where I'd spent countless nights fixing other people's messes. No one would call. No one would thank me. No one would even notice the effort it took to walk away without setting fire to everything. But I knew. And that was enough. After that, my family went completely silent. Not the awkward kind of quiet where someone is clearly waiting for the right words. This was a clean, deliberate silence. No calls. No texts. No half-hearted just checking in. My phone stayed face down on the kitchen counter for hours, then days, like an object that had lost its purpose. Every time it buzzed, it was an email, a spam alert, a calendar reminder, never them. At first, I told myself they were processing. That maybe my mom was hurt. Maybe my dad was trying to figure out how to smooth things over. That was the story I clung to while I washed dishes, folded laundry, went to work, smiled at coworkers who had no idea my entire family had decided I was optional. But silence has a way of clarifying things. I realized no one was asking if I was okay. No one wondered why I'd pulled back. No one was confused. They weren't upset enough to reach out, and they weren't worried enough to check. The absence wasn't accidental. It was the message. Evenings were the hardest. I'd sit on my couch in my Chicago apartment, TV on but muted, the city humming faintly through the windows. I caught myself rehearsing conversations that never came. What I'd say if my mom called. How calmly I'd explain myself if my dad finally decided to speak. Then I'd stop, embarrassed by my own hope. That silence confirmed what I'd spent years trying not to believe. I wasn't missed. I wasn't necessary. I was useful, and once I stopped being that, I disappeared without friction. There's a strange grief in realizing you could vanish, and the room would even notice the air had changed. It wasn't until everything was gone that they finally reached out. 4 days of silence. No calls, no texts, not even a passive-aggressive emoji. Then, suddenly, Natalie's name lit up my screen, followed by a voicemail so over the top it could have earned her a daytime Emmy. She was sobbing, gasping, practically choking on her own drama. But not once did she say sorry. Not once. Instead, she complained. The venue wouldn't rebook. The caterer wouldn't return her calls. The bakery had already trashed the custom cake. She said I'd overreacted, like getting kicked out of a party I paid for was just a cute little misunderstanding. A few hours later, my mom texted. All caps. No punctuation. No hello. Just, why would you do this? That was the moment it clicked. They weren't mad because I wasn't coming. They were mad because the party couldn't happen without me. That hurt, in a way, I wasn't ready for. Not the kind of hurt that makes you cry, but the kind that sharpens you. Cold. Cleaned out or would. Right? For years they'd brushed me off as too quiet, too sensitive, too much. They thought they could cut me out and still keep what I gave. My time, my money, my effort. Like I was some invisible faucet they could turn off and on at will. But this time, when they shut the door on me, I didn't come back. And suddenly, they were left outside too, locked out of everything I built, alone with their plastic chairs and melting cupcakes. And that was the beginning of the end. The morning of my mom's retirement party came like any other Saturday in Seattle. I didn't rush to get dressed. I didn't check my phone. I already knew what today was supposed to be, and I'd already chosen not to be in it. Instead of heading toward my parents' house, I drove across town to a little independent bookstore tucked between a bakery and a bike repair shop in Capitol Hill. I hadn't been there in years, but the smell was exactly the same. Old paper, dark roast coffee, a hint of dust and pine from the shelves. I ordered a latte I didn't even want and took a seat by the rain-speckled window. Outside, people passed with purpose. A dad holding his daughter's hand, a couple arguing softly over a dog leash, a woman in scrubs sipping something hot and walking like she'd been up all night. They all belonged somewhere. They all had something to return to. I sat with a book open on my lap, pretending to read, but my eyes kept drifting. My phone buzzed every few minutes. Natalie, Mom, even Dad. But I didn't pick it up. I didn't need to. I already knew what they'd say. No apology. No accountability. Just confusion that the machine had stopped running without its quietest gear. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel anger. Or heartbreak. Just space. Like I'd finally stepped out of a story that never really had a place for me in the first place. And for now, that was enough. Around 4 in the afternoon, my phone buzzed again. I didn't plan to check it. I'd already ignored a dozen calls from Natalie, a few half-hearted texts from Mom, and even a missed call from my dad. But this one was from Rachel, my cousin. Just a photo. No caption. I tapped it open. There it was. The party. Or whatever sad version of it survived without me. A sagging happy retirement banner hung lopsided over my parents' garage, duct taped to the stucco like a last-minute school project. Folding chairs, the cheap kind you rent for kids' birthday parties, lined the driveway, some half empty, some occupied by people who looked like they weren't sure if they were supposed to clap or leave. Someone had written, "You'll be missed" on a foam board in glitter marker, but the letters had already started peeling in the heat. And then there was my mother, standing dead center, her smile just a little too wide. Natalie was next to her, holding a plate of grocery store cupcakes, the kind with neon frosting and half-melted sprinkles. Her eyes weren't proud. They were darting. Panicked. Like she knew exactly how far things had fallen apart, but was still trying to hold the pose. I stared at that photo longer than I should have. Something in me cracked a little, and also clicked into place. They wanted the celebration, the attention, the picture-perfect moment. But without me, all they had was a garage and cupcake. And somehow, seeing that, it hurt. But it also felt like justice. Small, sad, overdue justice. I locked my phone, slid it into my bag, and let them keep their version of the day. Natalie didn't apologize. She never does. She called late that night, voice sharp and breathless, like she'd been rehearsing her anger in the mirror. She said I'd embarrassed the family, that I'd ruined Mom's moment out of spite, that everyone was talking. Then she landed on the words she's always used when things don't go her way: selfish and manipulative. I held the phone a few inches from my ear, staring at the dark window of my apartment, my own reflection floating back at me like a stranger. Outside, a police siren wailed somewhere downtown, distant and unconcerned. Natalie kept going. She said I'd planned this. That I'd waited for the perfect moment to punish everyone. That I was jealous because she and Mom were finally close now. That one almost made me laugh. Natalie had always been close to Mom. Growing up, she was the loud one, the charming one, the daughter whose mistakes were framed as personality. If she slammed the door, she was passionate. If I went quiet, I was cold. If she took up space, it was confidence. If I stepped back, it was manipulation. As she spoke, something settled in my chest, not anger, not sadness, but clarity. I wasn't being misunderstood. I was being cast. This was the role they'd written for me years ago, the difficult one, the ungrateful one, the villain who ruins the picture by refusing to stay in the background. I realized then that no explanation would ever fix this. Any boundary I set would be called cruelty. Any silence would be twisted into strategy. The story had already been decided, and I was never meant to win it. So I let Natalie talk. When she finally stopped, waiting for me to defend myself, I didn't. I ended the call, sat my phone face down on the table, and sat there in the quiet. Bitter, yes, but also free. I opened my laptop just after midnight, the house quiet in that way that makes every thought sound louder. The glow of the screen felt harsh against my tired eyes as I pulled up the email thread with the slideshow designer. Subject line still read, "Final edit, retirement celebration tot." I stared at it longer than I needed to, my cursor blinking like it was waiting for permission. Nearly 300 photos lived inside that file. Birthdays, with crooked candles. Beach trips where the sun washed everything out. And me, always me, off to the side holding something, fixing something, smiling because that's what I was supposed to do. There was one photo I couldn't get out of my head. My mom and me in our old kitchen, linoleum floor, yellow light, my hair in a bad ponytail. I was sick, missing a tooth, laughing so hard I'd thrown my head back. For once, I wasn't invisible. I typed the email slowly. Polite, ... professional ... I asked him to delete everything. All copies. All backup. The flash drive too. He replied a few minutes later, careful and kind, asking if I was sure. I said yes. My hands shook when I hit send, but my chest felt strangely steady. It hurt, God, it hurt, to let those memories go. But what hurt more was the idea of those images looping on a screen, for people who had already decided I didn't belong in the room. My childhood wasn't party decor. My past wasn't theirs to display. When the confirmation came back, short and final, I closed the laptop. The silence returned, heavier but cleaner. I sat there for a long time, breathing, understanding something new. I wasn't erasing myself. I was reclaiming what was mine. My dad never calls. So when his name lit up my screen that Tuesday afternoon, I knew something was off. His voice came through low and tired, like he'd aged a decade overnight. He didn't ask how I was. Didn't apologize. Just started in with, "It wasn't supposed to go down like that." Natalie was emotional. I was just trying to keep the peace. I let him talk. Let the excuses pile up like junk mail I wasn't going to read. Then, when there was a pause, I asked him the one question I couldn't shake. "Did you mean it when you liked that text?" Silence. I could hear the buzz of his kitchen light through the phone. The soft hum of his breath as he weighed his answer. Then, finally, like it hurt to say, he mumbled, "I thought it would be better if you didn't come." That was it. No stammer. No regret. Just a quiet sentence that rewrote 31 years of being the reliable one. The one who showed up. Who paid the invoices. Who made sure Mom had her jazz trio and floral wall, and her perfect little slideshow. I sat there on my couch, the room around me too still, too sharp. Like the air had been vacuumed out. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I just sat there, knowing nothing was ever going to feel the same again. Because in that moment, I stopped being their daughter and started being the problem they were willing to erase. And he said it like it was nothing, like I was nothing. I found out Bentley was gone on a quiet Saturday morning, the kind that tricks you into thinking nothing bad can happen. I pulled into my parents' driveway with his leash looped around my wrist, already picturing him launching himself at the door, nails scratching, tail slamming against the wall like it always did. The house was silent. No barking. No shadow pacing behind the curtains. My mom opened the door and didn't even invite me in. She just said it, flat and careless, like she was telling me they'd run out of milk. Your sister sold him. For a second, my brain refused to translate the words. Sold. Die. As in an old couch. As in something disposable. I stepped past her, heart pounding, my ears ringing. Bentley's bowls were still by the back door. His blanket was folded on the chair. He'd been here. He'd trusted them. She needed the money, my mom added, arms crossed, already defensive. And honestly, Marie, he'll be happier somewhere else. That was it. Something inside me tore clean in half. Bentley wasn't just my dog. He was the one constant that never asked me to shrink. He slept pressed against my legs on nights when my phone buzzed with family drama. He waited for me, every single time. And Natalie had decided, without asking, that her needs mattered more than my love. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I walked through that house like I was seeing it for the last time, every step fueled by a heat I'd swallowed my entire life. When the police asked what happened, my voice was steady. They sold my dog without my consent. Saying it out loud changed everything. Bentley wasn't a symbol. He was mine. And this time, I didn't let it go. They called the next morning. Bentley had been found. I drove to the station with my heart knotted in my throat, bracing for disappointment, for one more thing to go wrong. But the second I walked through those glass doors, he saw me. My dog, my sweet, stubborn Bentley, tore down the hallway like he'd been waiting his whole life for that moment. His tail was a blur, his ears pinned back, and when he crashed into my legs, I dropped to the floor without a second thought. He licked my face like he was trying to erase everything bad that had happened. I let him. Something inside me, something I didn't know had been clenched for years, finally let go. That night, I filed charges. My mom left a voicemail around midnight. It started calm, almost rehearsed, but by the end, she was yelling, saying I'd gone too far, that I was destroying the family. Then came the threat. If you don't drop this, you're not part of this family anymore. I didn't even flinch. I deleted the message. The next morning, I changed the locks, updated my emergency contacts, and blocked every number that had made me feel small. Natalie paid restitution through her lawyer. No apology. Not a word. Bentley curled up beside me that night, his head heavy on my leg. The house was still, the kind of quiet that doesn't ache anymore. For the first time in years, I wasn't waiting for the next betrayal. I wasn't shrinking. I wasn't begging to be chosen. I was just free. And that was enough.